Welcome to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole, the podcast dedicated to you loving and putting yourself first. Others have come first in your life for years, and you know it's time for that to change. You're about to be empowered to set healthy boundaries, confidently have hard conversations, unapologetically put yourself first, and live the peaceful life you deserve. Remember, self-love is essential, and loving yourself sets the stage for every other love in your life. So get ready to embrace self-love like never before with your host, Coach Tammy Nicole.
Hey, it's Transformation Tuesdays over at Loving Me Before I Love You. As you guys know, we always jump into the same type of topic every week, right? For the month. I'm a monthly girl, and this week is no different. So last week we talked about who are you when nobody's watching? Like, who are you without the roles and the titles and all that good stuff, right? And this week, it will be no different. We're going to talk a little bit more about the psychology of identity. Like, why do we lose ourselves in the roles that we play? I'm your host. I'm Coach Tammy Nicole. I am here to help women reclaim their voice, their worth, and their power so that they can stand in clarity, confidence, and courage. I don't do this alone because I always say this is Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole and friends. And I do have a friend with me today. Now, I have watched her and followed her on TikTok, and that's where I found her. And I loved her content. And so guess what? She's here to help me dissect, dive deep in the psychology of identity. Why? Because she helps women all the time stop self-sabotaging. You guys like to self-sabotage? And she's going to tell you why. But I have a whole inkling. It has a lot to do with your See, I can't talk today. Your psychology of your identity. And guess what? Her name is Jessica Toussaint. And she is here, and she's going to tell y'all a little bit more about her. But I just want you to welcome her with open arms and get ready to dive deep into this subject, because this one is the real one. Because if you don't know who you are, all of this self-love talk that I tell you, you will never be able to actually grasp the concept enough to actually walk it out. So get your mama, your partner, your friend, your fixer, your heal. Get everybody, the strong ones, and tell them come sit down with their journal and learn a little bit more about who they are. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
It's the work that you're doing. I applaud you with women. I'm a little biased. I love women, but so I am a success and executive coach, and so I get to walk alongside of women from all walks of life and help them become whatever that thing it is that they want to achieve. And a lot of times, what's holding us between the promise versus what we know God has said is us. We are the self-sabotage. We are the accelerant. And so I get to walk with women in the most vulnerable moments, because to really deep dive and look into yourself, it takes courage to do that. And so I find it a privilege just to really walk with women through retreats, through events, through books, and all the things. But I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here, right? And in order to even help them walk through those different paths, the first thing that they always have to identify is who they are, right? They can't even create the retreat. They can't create the conference. They can't create any of those things without knowing who they are and their why. And so while you're helping them, I just feel like this is still a super great subject matter for you, because it's going to help people understand how to be them while trying to be other things.
Yeah, it's very good.
So first question, I won't call it off topic because it's on topic in reference to you, right? How did you get into the line of work, and where do your identity lie in the process or in the sandwich of what you do?
Okay, so I got into the work. So I like to think it took me a minute to realize that I was my first client. Before, sometimes we try to help everyone else.
Yeah.
But I had to do the work in myself. And really, I remember my dad passed away a number of years ago. And I remember I'm the go-to person in my family for everything. And I remember them saying, you gotta sign up whatever. I'm like, wait, let me sign myself up. So I remember going through it and realizing how much I had created my identity in what I was doing versus who I was.
Mm.
And so as a result, I think it's one thing when people hear the books, right, of it, but it's another thing when someone has walked it. So now I can speak to it. I have a little bit more compassion because, baby, I see myself, right? And so when God liberates one person, it's our job to go and help other people. And so that's how I find myself like sandwiched in it, that when I'm serving a woman, I am serving myself, right? And I can see it in a different perspective than I would have saw it if I was teaching medicine, right? In medicine, I'm just learning the skill, but it's not when you get into the operating room and you say, wait, where do we use the scalpel, right? It's the same concept in life in terms of that. And then I think it's also for people to trust you enough to share that space. And a lot of times the reason why maybe we get stuck is because of shame or fear or pride. And so again, I get to see myself in it. And so I was my first client. I had to do the work and I'm still doing the work because as long as there's breath in our bodies, there's always something to
Work
do.
to do. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I think a lot of times, even in the work that I do, when it comes to women learning to love themselves wholeheartedly, unapologetically, authentically, getting to the root of it all is always the most difficult part, right? It's always like, well, why do I have to go back to childhood? Or why do I have to go back to who defined love for me? And it's because if you don't pull the root up,
It's true.
whatever grew on the roots will grow again.
Yeah.
So yes, you can cut the tree down, but if you don't remove everything from the ground, that tree will grow again as long as it continues to get watered. But the roots is where it lasts, right? And so I think a lot of times when we think about identity, we don't look at it as our root. Your identity is your root.
Yeah.
And being able to pull that identity, identify it, talk about it, show yourself who it really is very, very imperative to being the best version of yourself, period. You can't really do the different roles well either.
Did I lose her?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So you can't do the roles that we pull or play. You know what I mean? Like you think about like even if it's you're talking about a job or if you're talking about being a mom or a daughter or you can't do those roles well not knowing the root of your identity of who you are. So when you're helping the women and you're doing all of the business aspects and their self-sabotage stuff comes up into play, how do you navigate that with them?
So for me, I'm big on mirror, like facing the mirror, because a lot of times, so sometimes we intentionally are doing it. We consciously are, but a lot of the time we are subconsciously doing it. And so it's allowing them to like unpack it. So for example, I want to lose weight, right? So I'm saying, hey, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 10 pounds. But what behavior am I doing to get towards that goal? And so all of a sudden I want to go out to eat because my friends asked me to, right? But even if I go out to eat, what am I eating on the menu? So being aware of it. And so a lot of times when women are stuck, it's not that they don't have the tools, it's not that they don't know, but it's the behavior. And so it's allowing them to understand the behavior. And then the other thing is, growing up, when you look at like the optical illusion in a picture, you look at the optical illusion. And so I think like the FedEx is a good one. So you see FedEx, and if you ever look at the word in the logo, it has an arrow. So now that you know it, some people know, some people don't. But now that you know it, you will never unsee that again. You have seen it. And so some of us, it's tracing those layers and starting to see the small steps and starting to identify, wait, every time I'm going to launch this, or when I'm going to do this, this feeling comes. And because this feeling comes, I do X, Y, Z. Again, a behavior.
Got it. So for you, it's basically being able to identify the different things that basically stop you from doing what you're really called to do or what you really want to do in general. I would call that lack of self-awareness.
Yes, definitely.
From a self-love perspective, right, guys? When you think about learning who you are, a lot of us don't think about behavior. We really think about thought patterns a lot of times, or we think about like what our mom and them did, or who everybody else called us to be. But the subtle behaviors that we do, the things that we do without thinking, which is why I like journaling. That's why in the beginning I said grab your journal so that you can actually start. Like, if you don't write it down to see it, you don't see it. Right? It's like, I think about driving all of the time, right? When you're driving and you're going places that you go on the regular basis, there's not like a new spot. It's somewhere you just like, I go here every day.
Yeah.
And you just do it on autopilot. Sometimes you can get to your location and say, how did I get here?
Yeah, it's true.
Because you don't remember like the physicalness of like your mind was 50 miles away from the right now. And I think the other part of identity is staying present, right? We don't stay present in who we are because we have done things on a habitual, ritual way all the time. It's like you don't stay present, you don't stay tangible, you don't stay connected. So your identity gets lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
That's why we don't typically know, like, who are you outside of that role? You don't know because you lost in the sauce of just doing everything. You don't stay present with you. How do you teach people to stay present in the moment in order to reach the goal that they actually have for themselves?
So I think sometimes, so for me, I have to sometimes literally say, where are my feet? Because
That's a good question.
sometimes we could be anywhere. We're sitting at work, but we're thinking about, I got to take the kids to do this. After this, I got to cook. I got to clean. Did I remember to do this? So literally putting my feet, like remembering like it. The other thing is too, a lot of times we're so caught up in the doing that we forget, like we miss the moments, right? So if you've ever planned an event, a function, you start doing it. And then people are like, oh, it was fabulous. It was just amazing. But you didn't get to enjoy it because guess what? You were the host with the mostest. You were making sure everything was happening. So it's being present, as you said, like being aware of it. And being intentional. Nothing happens by happenstance. You have to make it up in your mind to be intentional. I do agree. I like to write. I'm a list person. So sometimes it's taking time to still my mind. And so maybe going out intentionally in a space that I'm not as comfortable with, because sometimes when we're in a comfortable space, we find ourselves, I said, I was going to do this today. I was going to focus on this. And then all of a sudden 10 things pop up. But if I purpose in my heart to go sit by the water, so purpose in my heart to go sit at a coffee shop to do something different, my results will be different. So it's really being aware. And then when you have the awareness, staffing it. Because a lot of times we know this is my proclivity. We know, you know what, when I get around this person or this situation, this tends to happen. So then I have to staff myself, whether it's through accountability, whether it's through my environment, and really being honest to myself. I think a lot of times the person that we're most dishonest with is with ourselves. And so we're saying, oh, I got the capacity. And your body is saying, no, sis, get to bed. Your body is like, no, girl, and again, but we're trying to keep up appearances because we the strong one and everyone has this expectation of us, right? So how can we really say, I don't got it today? But it's being aware of how I feel and then understanding, I think the key aspect of it, understanding that what I do doesn't define me. It is not, a lot of us have equated it, whether we realize it or not, to our worth. And so we find it that if I'm not producing, then I'm not enough. If I'm not producing, then I'm not worthy. And so we find ourselves saying yes and overextending ourselves and exhausted. I've been guilty of it because we are trying to keep up an appearance or be in positions because that's what people expect, or we've expected ourselves to be. Instead of saying, you know what, in this season, sit down for a second and rebuild the foundation, which is you.
Yeah. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I need?
Yeah.
And then actually honored the answer.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times we don't ask that question. We just typically feel like we don't matter, or long as everybody else is okay, I'm fine. And the reality of that is capacity is, you mentioned capacity. Capacity is a really big thing. We don't know what our capacity is, yet alone able to decide and decipher when it's been met, when it's been reached. So I think being intentional on understanding your capacity is the first step. Like, what is it? What is your capacity for X, Y, and Z? And then honor that capacity limit and make sure that you have included yourself in it.
Yeah, it's true.
Because a lot of times we do a capacity check and it's like, I got the capacity, to handle 5 events, but those 5 events don't include you. And it's like, wait a minute, if you only got the capacity of 5, how are you doing 5 for Sister Joe at the church, your mama, your cousin down the street, the homegirl around the corner, and your kids? That's 5. Where are you in the equation? So if you don't have the capacity for you,
it's true.
What are we doing? You're going to be burnt out. Your worth is going to be in the toilet because you're going to start having that limited belief system start to come up. And you're going to be saying, everybody else needs me. Everybody else needs me. And the reality is you need you first.
It's true. You preaching.
And but we never seem to understand. And I always say, if God said to put me first, who are you to tell me not to? And of course, people will always argue the points, but he said it. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yep.
That as mean that myself came first.
Yeah.
That myself was the blueprint and you were the duplicate.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then there's no way in the world I could ever do for you without doing for me first.
Yeah.
But we find that difficult. So if your identity was in a room, what's in it that no longer belongs? And who placed it there?
So I would say, that was so good. So I would say, no, that was. I had to like pause and digest it. So I would say for right now in this season, I feel like my identity would be, I don't know, I keep hearing, this is probably the first time I'm saying this out loud. I would say freedom, because it took me a long time to be free. I think the thing that I've wrestled with through the years has been self-doubt. And where I say, when you say who put it there, I would say, as a child, those relationships, whether people say like, you sure? Then you start asking yourself, are you sure? And you find yourself second guessing. And that the Bible says a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And so I don't know about you, but you ever know something or God tell you something, or you knew you should have said it and someone got up and did it. And you're like, I could have done it this way. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I knew this. I hate that I knew it. I got tired of feeling that way, because those things, sometimes God lets it happen to remind, like, you heard me. You heard other people louder than me, but you heard me. And so for me, I think God is pushing me into freedom, and to really, because a lot of times we say we're free, but then we're asking people for affirmation. We're saying, I'm whatever, but we always need some sort of validation. We always need someone else's opinion. And so I think in this season, God is reminding me, like, trust what I put inside of you and be free to be that and to make the mistakes, because I've already covered that, right? And a lot of times my identity used to be, and I call myself this all the time, a recovering perfectionist, because I don't claim it. And as a perfectionist, you want everything, every dot, every I, cross every T. But if you're not careful, you won't launch, you won't step forward because you busy. And then
let me tell you something.
Uh-huh.
Literally. And I want you, when we get off of here, to go on over to TikTok.
Okay.
But literally today, I did a post that said perfectionism is a thief.
Yes, it is.
Thoroughly. You want to talk about like, oh, God be aligning stuff so much, it'd be so funny. But literally, I did a post that said perfectionism is a thief. And I talked literally about how you want to do things right. I said, I'm guilty of this. I'm so guilty of this. I said, but I will never reach the people I'm supposed to reach if I keep worrying about, is it done perfect? And then I said, this is where done is better than perfect comes from, because you just need to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you will perfect the things along the way, because getting it done is always going to be better than doing it perfectly. But we get in our own way all of the time. But perfectionism is a thief.
It is.
It will kill, steal, and destroy everything that you had planned, because you want it to be a certain way. You don't want people to see you a certain way. And that was, oh my God, it's so me. I was like, oh my God, I can't stand this social media thing. And like, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it's not this, and it's not that. And you don't want people to think this. And I'm like, I'm the expert. And as the expert, you have to show up in a certain way. And it's like, I'm going to miss everybody that I'm supposed to technically help, because I'm so busy worrying about it looking right for you, when you probably want the cool homegirl sitting on the side that just got all the answers for you without you. Because you afraid of the expert. You afraid to go into the perfectionist person, the one that looks so polished and well done. And you're like, she going to charge me an arm and a leg because look how she looks.
Yeah. And I also,
that is so deep.
And I also think when it comes to perfectionism, it's rooted also in our pride and how we see ourselves. And it's so social media, as you mentioned, it has so many advantages, but one of the things that's challenging is people are showing up as their best versions of themselves, right? And you're seeing the highlight reels, but it's the beauty of like seeing me in a room, like, like in the corner and saying, girl, remember how lighting was off? Now the lighting's better. And them watching me evolve, right? And being like the forerunners to get to see it. And I think a lot of times we want people to see the best parts and not understanding it's those other parts that like the parts that we don't want people to see, that are the parts that will bless them the most, right? And so it's important.
Hey, hope you're feeling the love in today's episode. We'll pick back up where we left off in a moment. First, we're excited to share that Tammy has a collection of self-love t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and journals for you to express how much you love yourself to the world. From comfy hoodies to motivational mugs, there's something for everyone. While you're listening to today's show, feel free to browse the full collection at IamTammyNicole.com. Thank you, and without further ado, let's get back into today's show.
As we navigate it, because it keeps a lot of us bound. And then the other thing is, some of us, we have to start doing it now. And why? Is because by the time we blow up, right? By the time our name is called, right? We have worked out the kinks now. And so we might be the expert, but we're not ready. We don't present well on camera, right? Our voices crack, or our confidence, we're a little shy.
Yeah, girl.
The time to grow, to be fashioned, so that when we hit the stage, when our
We
moment,
ready.
we ready. And so it's God's grace that he's pushing us. And so whoever's listening that's struggling with perfectionism, it's your moment to step out, even in little steps. Sometimes we think it got to be major.
Yeah. So it's just so funny because I was thinking, what in your life would shift if you stop performing and start being?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, for me, when I started doing that, my relationship started to change. Because when you start saying no, people don't understand. When you always said yes.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's the first thing that shuts down, to be honest, because people love you being in a space of no boundaries.
Yeah.
No, what?
Benefit. They don't want you healed and whole.
No, because you interrupting their luxuries that they get from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think a lot of times we forget how the human side of us really works because we're so busy trying to just get what we can get out of people in general, right?
Yeah.
It's like I need to get everything I can get out of you as long as you ain't asking for nothing out of me.
Yeah. That's people. Definitely, that is people. That's why it's our job to steward our relationships and steward us, who we are.
Yeah. I think because we pick up roles before we pick up our identity.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's like, what role are you afraid to put down?
Yeah.
And what truth are you afraid to face if you do?
Yeah. Well, so, and I'm dating myself when I say this. You think of a cassette player, right? Like, we all have these messages that are playing within our head.
Over and over.
Over and over. So when we give up those identity, all of a sudden that stuff come up because you were too busy. You were too exhausted, right? Being this and being that on every committee. But now you got some time. And so now you sitting and resting. And then guess what? It gets a little heavy. The tears start coming. You start remembering the things that God told you to do that you didn't do. You start remembering dreams, or for some people it becomes overwhelming. They get the negative thoughts, right? And so sometimes we are avoiding ourselves. It's hard, but yeah. But sometimes the Bible talks about be still and know that I am God. And so I think one of my biggest breakthroughs have just been being still, and just hearing myself and what I need. Because a lot of times, again, people have these prescriptions and they can only and just like a doctor can only tell you based on what you've shared. But the only person that really knows what's going on in our hearts is God in us. And sometimes he knows better than us, right? Because of it. But it's nothing like sitting with ourselves, journaling those feelings, crying out to, and just whatever it is. But a lot of times, like I said, the roles help us escape, and make us feel valuable. Even though if we did nothing, we would already be valuable. We are valuable.
Facts. Just being you have value. But without let me see how to even say this. The value is based upon the things that you accept, the behaviors that you accept, which is like, why would you accept low value outcomes if you are a high worth individual, right? High worth choices do not produce low value outcomes.
Yeah.
So your outcome is determined by your worth. Your outcome is the value. However, we tell ourselves we have one thing, but we operate in something different. I'm always big on teaching my clients that your worth is what you set. How you respond and what you accept from other people is the value that you've allowed them to place on you.
Yeah.
Which then demonstrates your worth to not be what you said it is.
Yeah.
Right? So if you get into a relationship with a guy and you allow that guy to treat you any old kind of way, and he sets your value number, and we're going to use numbers because that's what I want to do. If we got $100 and you say you are worth $100 and he treats you like a $2 bill and you accept that treatment, are you still worth $100? Or did your worth drop to $2? And when you look at it from that perspective, most of us would say, oh no, I'm still worth $100. I just accept it too. No, you're worth what you accepted.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you were worth 100, you would only accept 100. You're not on discount. You're not, your worth is not a bargaining tool.
That's good. It's true. Well, so to piggyback on what you just said, so working with a client, so what's interesting, what you just said, working with a client, I remember coming up with like my price code with one of my friends and offering like, hey, I'm thinking about pitching. I work with nonprofits, individuals like women, leaders, but then I also work with like organizations, nonprofit. So I'm like sharing with her the numbers and she's like, oh girl, I think that's too high. I said, too high? I just went and looked up their budget. No. And so, but listening to her, I started to second guess, like, you know what? Maybe it is too high. And then I said, you know what? What's the worst I can do? Pitch the number. And if it don't work, then, you know, if I don't get the client, it's just, I don't get the client or they negotiate. And then I started getting exactly what I wanted. And I realized, wait, you've been charging too low. And it also taught me you have to watch who you talk to. Because if you listen to your friend, you would have never had the audacity to do it. And so you are absolutely right when it comes to value. And so, and then when I'm pitching, they're not negotiating. They're saying, okay, where can I sign? And so I realized some of us have now accomplished certain things. It's not because we don't have the expertise or the goods, but it's because we have not bet on ourselves enough to put it out there. And you ain't for everybody. Every client ain't for you. And you don't want every client, trust me.
Facts. You are customized for the one.
For the one. And so you got to bet on yourself, to your point, in terms of value. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you set the worth. They don't set your worth. You set it. So that's why I say a lot of us don't know our worth because we're waiting on other people to validate what we think.
Yep.
Instead of you validating what it is and allowing them to experience the value that comes from it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then I also think even in doing that, when certain offers came, they would like bring lower. And probably the old version of Jessica would have done it. But now I'm like, no, it's not my rate anymore. And so be okay with evolving. You should evolve, right? And so now at one point I would be like, oh, let me go send an email over, dude. Now I'm like, no, this is not my rate. You know what? But you can come back to me when you're at that budget, you know, but that takes, again, as you set the value, the more you reinforce it, the stronger, the more confidence. So people say, fake it till you make it. I agree, but I disagree a little bit. I think it's a muscle. And so as you walk in it, like a baby, the more you walk, the stronger you get. And as you are strengthened, you become it. But it's what you said, like you said, it's setting your value and what you will accept, not what other people will give you, but what you choose to accept.
Facts. And so the confidence piece really comes from a trust factor. So when you talk about being able to set a value or set your worth, you have to trust that is what it is for you. Yeah. But a lot of us don't trust ourselves, right? So if we were to really peel back the onion to the worth piece, it starts with the trust piece. Am I trustworthy at that rate? Yeah. Can they depend on me? Can I perform at that rate? Can I do at that rate, right? So until you can trust yourself in that space at that rate, you second guess it. And that's why when it comes to, if they offer something lower, I mean, it's something, it's better than nothing. And it's like, no, my rate is $5,000. Mm-hmm. This is what we doing. We doing $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, if your budget doesn't suffice for it today, when it's available, let me know. Now, I may have other packages that you won't get everything that we just discussed that will give you at the budget that you need in order to get me in the door. But you're only going to get what's included in that package. You're not going to get what I just presented. And I think a lot of times, even doing that or having that skill set to be so diversified with who I am, we don't even do that. You know, like, oh, I'll give you this, but you know, you're not going to get all of that.
Yep.
I showed you what you could get at this rate, but if you can't afford that rate, that's fine. I have another package for you, but you're going to only get this little small piece of me. A lot of us give the whole package for the small price.
That's
and that
true.
has to.
It's true. And then I wind up, and then those clients tend to be the most stressful ones. Because
They want everything.
They want everything. And
But
because
nothing.
you haven't even given the value of what they're getting. So they think your time is nothing versus, no. So, and it cost us. And whether you realize it or not, each time that you yield, you are subconsciously telling yourself you're not worth it. And baby, we're worth it. And so no. So, because when I get that contract and it's a certain number, I'm like, girl, you did that. It's a pride in me. And guess what? I'm focused because I understand what I just signed up for. And I understand what that person level of investment. Yes. And so it makes me stand up even stronger in how I present, right? And so that's why it's important. Some of us, we got these little low offers, low whatever, because we're not taking it seriously. But do something that scares you. You'll be surprised because a lot of times we're looking for our family and our friends to support us. But it's strangers that will come in and take a chance on you. And then all of a sudden you'll be like the next best thing. But it takes action.
It does, at 100%. But it's also knowing your identity in order to feel like you can take that action.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what version of you is showing up? And is it showing up out of survival?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you ready to be resurrected because it's been like sitting in the dump somewhere because you haven't tapped in?
Yeah.
Identity is key. I was talking to a friend and he was talking about sometimes the real issue is the belief pattern of where we want to go and what we want to do. But we can't believe in something we don't see most of the time. But then we call ourselves Christians and we've never seen God himself in physical form, but we believe in him and we believe in his power and we believe in his way. But we are afraid to do the same with ourselves, who we see every day.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to believe in who you are. But if you don't know who you are, what are we believing in? Which is why everybody jumps from one thing to the next. There is no solidarity in what they want out of life. You see somebody else do something, you want that because it looks amazing. Like not too long ago, the young lady that just got engaged in Dallas and her fiance shut down the city, downtown Dallas, to do a drone show to ask her to marry him. Like that was fabulous. Now, how many of them are we going to see shortly? Because now everybody wants to do that, right? Like that was like, oh man, you got to go big or go home. You saw that? You saw what he did? I need that, and that's going to be the new thing to get done versus staying your own race, walking in your own identity. Like that was for her.
Yeah.
That was for them. That's what aligned with her. That's what aligned, you know what I mean? Why do you need it? Because you've seen it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you know who you are, you will start aligning everything with who you are. Most of the things that you're going after that you can't achieve it because it doesn't align with you. And then sometimes you go get it and you're miserable with it because it does not align with you. But you won't know what aligns with you until you know your identity.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I also think like God does not anoint a fake version of us. He only his
the real
presence
version
is us, the real version. And so it's exhausting being someone else. It's exhausting trying to replicate something that's not authentic to you, and understanding the things that we're sometimes ashamed of, the things that we feel like are not super squeaky clean, are the very things that God wants to use. So if someone has like Moses, right, was like, I can't speak, I stutter. But it was like, even through the impediment, God still used him. And so I think a lot of times when we get stuck on what we don't have or what we're missing or what we think we're missing, because we're not missing anything, what happens is we put ourselves ahead of whatever God said, right? It's pride. We say, I don't have the ability, the capability. And so it's understanding the foundation that God has called us before, like in our mother's womb, right? Like he identified.
He knew you.
He knew us. He chose us, right? And then 2, understanding who we are, like what gifts and qualities are inside of you, what makes you unique, right? When we talk about marketing, your unique value proposition, what is your value proposition? And so a lot of times, you have a burden for homeless people, you have a burden for single moms, that makes you, right? And a lot of times, you're right, we're trying to function in spaces that God has not called us to. He has not equipped us to. And so it makes it harder. And so what are we able to do with grace to do? What is it that we hear about? Our heart aches, right? Like, and we know that we've been called to do. And the other thing is, we have to move from performing to being, because being is easy. It's just opening my mouth and just sharing, right? Or just showing up and knowing what to do. Versus performing, you have to study for it. You have to educate yourself. It's a whole lot of work instead of just being. And then when you're being, guess what? When you're tired, you sit down. When you need rest, you're not comparing yourself. You're just chilling in who you are, knowing that if I'm in the equation or not, it's okay, because in this season, I'm supposed to do that. Versus trying to keep up with who are you trying to keep up with? It's a waste of time.
Absolutely. What tips would you give a woman who's listening that says, I hear y'all talking, but I don't know how to find my identity. I don't know how to recognize who I am. What would you tell her?
So I would say, one, you're at a good point because you're aware of that. So the awareness alone is a great sign. I would say another thing is that you have to give yourself permission to be. And what that looks like is be open, date yourself, right? Like take yourself out, because some things we don't know we like, or we don't know because of lack of exposure. And so put yourself out there, do things that are uncomfortable, go into listen to things like this, like the podcast, Loving Me Before I Love You podcast. Being in environments that equipped you, that encourage you. And then taking time to journal, sit with yourself, go on walks, spend quiet time, let Holy Spirit speak to you. Some of us is reading a book, some of going back to the Bible, right? And learning to do that. Affirmations. So sometimes we may not believe it. We've heard of it, but we don't believe it for ourselves. But it's looking at yourself every day in the mirror, writing it down. Even you might put on my mirrors, I have affirmations in each room, in the mirrors. So it's just a reminder, like, girl, you got this. And so you're constantly rehearsing it. But the biggest thing is give yourself grace, because where you are now, you didn't get here overnight. And so a lot of times we want to change our whole persona overnight. Yep. It's the small steps, being consistent,
Absolutely. 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 I would say there's one thing that you can give yourself in reclaiming anything that you want to do about yourself today is going to be time, right? Jessica mentioned dating yourself and things like that. Y'all know I just dropped a book a few months ago called Me, Myself, and Love. It is a self-love dating journal. Go get it. This journal is not just about, giving you dates to do, though it does do that, but it also digs deeper into why you don't like being by yourself, it also digs deeper into getting you more comfortable with being alone. And it also teaches you what love is for you. Because you need to know your own love language. You need to know what love means for you. And it gives you a commitment process on how to stay committed to you regarding everything that you're going to do through life. Because without you, everything else kind of fails, right?
Yeah.
You need you to be healthy and whole, clear, confident, with courage. So I agree with Jessica. Definitely go out and date yourself. Do something for you. Learn your capacity. Learn what it is that you need to know for yourself in order to be efficient in this world. So, Jessica, do you have any events, anything going on that you want to tell the people about that they can come support you? Any of those things?
Sure. So we're hosting Powerfully You Retreat. And it's really to do some of this work that we're talking about. I like to call it excavation. So it's like excavating our hearts. And so what happens is you go to these empowerment events and all these things. A lot of times you just get inspired, but you don't leave with actual information. Like, how do I do this outside of this? And so for 3 days, 2.5 days, we meet at a resort in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It's going to be fabulous. We have some expert professionals that are coming to pour into you, but also community, and also to give you rest, because a lot of time we are performing as women. So many things are being pulled and asked of us. So we create a safe space for women to literally be poured into, but get information. And then following that, we create some action goals. And then I hold you accountable. I hold you accountable so that we're not, God has given us these ideas, these gifts, but it's important that we learn to steward it. So it's October 2nd to the 4th. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
That's awesome.
You can find more information at powerfullyouretreat.com.
Awesome. Awesome. You guys definitely want to get there. That's in my backyard. So I might have to try to put that on my list. But again, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure discussing how to find your own identity, because a lot of us, we don't have it. We need it.
Yeah.
We don't have it. We need it. And knowing who you are is really the foundation to growing and being the best version of yourself. But as we say over here at Loving Me Before I Love You, love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus. Don't forget, if you want any of the coaching products or anything like that, go to my website. You can go to stan.store/I am Tammy Nicole, or you can send me an email at coaching@IamTammyNicole.com. Remember, we'll be back transforming your life again next week on Tuesday. You guys have a blessed day.
That's a wrap on another episode of Loving Me Before I Love You. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to show your support by subscribing and leaving a positive rating and review on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Stay connected with Tammy. Make sure you're following her on Instagram and TikTok at Coach Tammy Nicole. If you like to work with Tammy or have any questions you'd like her to answer, please head over to www.IamTammyNicole.com. Until next time, always remember to love yourself so much that the love from others is a bonus.